Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Becky Thatcher Bear, Director of Community Development at the Allegheny Conference. Welcome to the latest installment of the conference's Response and Recovery webinar series. Before we dive into our program, I want to thank our sponsors for their generous support that make all of this possible. Peoples, Giant Eagle, Highmark Health, and UPMC Health Plan. I'd also like to thank the members of the Allegheny Conference's Regional Investors Council for their time, talent, and resources in support of the conference's work on behalf of our region. Thank you again for joining us today to discuss an incredibly important topic for our region that is, that is the sustainability and support of the communities in our region. Most community-based organizations that focus on quality of life for residents and stakeholders in our communities are nonprofit organizations who really focus on improving areas like housing, food access, small business development, real estate development, and even their workforce to ensure people within their communities can thrive. Our community-based organizations are the frontline conduits for our communities when crisis happens. Whether it's a public health crisis or an economic one like the ones we're experiencing now, a social crisis or many others, they're often the first responders to be there for the people within their communities to advocate for the needs of their community. Now more than ever, our community organizations need support. Many of the recent relief funding from COVID is not accessible for these organizations, while financial funding is a high priority, especially in our current environment. Strategic partnerships and in-kind support are also vital for these community organizations. Many have very small budgets and limited staff, but yet these organizations are able to move mountains with the right sorts of partnerships and investments for the communities in our region. Today, we've gathered a panel of companies that have invested in communities in a variety of ways, as well as a local community organization that has created strong programming and significant impacts. This morning, you'll hear from Marimba Malayans, President and CEO of the Hill Community Development Corporation, Renee Morales, the Public Affairs Manager of the Central Area for Crown Castle, Mike Campsabelis, the Product Management Lead for Google, and Carol Nealon, Senior Vice President at Dollar Bank. In addition, we are fortunate to have our panel moderated by our very own Kyle Chintalopoli, Vice President of Business and Economic Development for our affiliate, the Pittsburgh Regional Alliance. Prior to joining the Allegheny Conference, Kyle worked both in the City of Pittsburgh's Mayor's Office, as well as the City of Pittsburgh's Urban Redevelopment Authority. He worked on a wide range of projects, policies, and initiatives to encourage responsible growth and development in our neighborhoods. Without further delay, it's my pleasure to get our program started and bring Kyle.
Thank you, Becky. I really couldn't be more excited to join today's panel for what we hope will be an exciting and informative discussion on the benefits and importance of building strong relationships between the business and corporate community and the places they call home. Now, these relationships are not only critical to the CBOs and residents, but they are also beneficial for the corporate partners in helping to ensure the vitality of their surrounding communities. They are about being a good neighbor and a vested member of the community, and serve as a critical first step if we are to become a region that is truly livable for everyone. Now, at this time, I would like to have our panelists join us. And as Becky mentioned, we are joined today by Marimba Malayans, President and CEO at the Hill Community Development Corporation, Renee Morales, the Public Affairs Manager for the Central Area for Crown Castle, Mike Campsabelis, Product Management Lead for Google Pittsburgh, and Carol Nealon, the Senior Vice President for Dollar Bank. As a reminder, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your window if you have questions for our panelists, and we'll do our best to get to as many as possible in the time that we have together this morning. So first, our panelists take an opportunity to provide a brief overview of their organization, their role, and maybe some top line takeaways for the work as it relates to I think we're getting some feedback, guys, if folks can mute unless you're speaking. Okay, that's better. So first, I'd like to welcome Marimba Malayans so that she's able to speak to that for the Hill CDC, as well as the work they're doing every day. Marimba? It's
Good
great.
morning. Thank you, Kyle. Good to be here with everyone. And I do want to thank the Allegheny Conference on Community Development for launching the Strengthening Communities Partnership Program. It's been incredibly helpful for us. We are an organization focused on the revitalization of the 1.8 square mile swath of land between our Commerce District and our University District, called the Hill District, a historically Black neighborhood that is focused on the revitalization that is rooted in its cultural legacy. It's a really exciting time for the Hill District. If you're in Pittsburgh, you know that there's lots of development happening from the Lower Hill District to the revitalization of Center Avenue and the Upper Hill District, which is a historic kind of housing neighborhood. So I'm really excited to share a little bit about our work and why our corporate partnerships, including our partnership with the Allegheny Conference on Community Development, can yield major returns for our entire region. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thank you, Marimba. Renee, if you'd be able to speak to your work with Crown Castle and with the organization.
Great, thanks, Kyle. And we super appreciate our relationship with the Allegheny Conference and being on this panel today. Again, my name is Renee Morales. I'm a public affairs manager with Crown Castle. Crown Castle holds the nation's largest portfolio of shared communications infrastructure. And what that means is we have 40,000 cell towers. That's what you see off in the distance. That creates coverage in a geographic area for your cell phones, iPads, what have you. We have 70,000 small cells either on air or under contract, and that's really going to bring the revolution of 5G to you and your neighbors. And we have about 80,000 route miles of fiber all across the nation. And fiber is going to bring the underpinning to 5G for you. That's ultra high speed and ultra low latency. And we really believe this is creating the pathway to possible for this 5G revolution coming to your neighbors. But we also believe in connecting to neighbors, and our CSR program, which we call Connected by Good, we believe is the philosophical piece of the infrastructure literally connecting you, and our CSR program, which is the connection being woven into the fabric of the community. And I hope we'll get to talk about what we do in Western PA and Canonsburg and just all over, and how we truly believe our culture is reflective of our Connected by Good programming.
Great, thank you very much, Renee. Mike, if you'd be able to share a little bit about Google and your work there.
Sure. I imagine most of you are familiar with Google, so I won't explain what we do. We do a lot of things. But thank you to the Allegheny Conference for inviting me to be part of this great panel. My day job is as a product management lead, but I'm also one of the leads of our community affairs team in the office. So there's a handful of us who organize and coordinate a lot of our community outreach efforts. A lot of what we do locally is focused on bridging the digital divide, supporting computer science education, especially at the K-12 level, and supporting entrepreneurship and small business. We partner a lot. We work with nonprofits, we work with the government organizations, we work with small businesses to get more bang for the buck for the work that we do locally. And then, Google globally has been making some big investments in response to the COVID crisis, in response to the racial justice problems we're seeing in the country. So we're also happy to get engaged with that work and look for ways we can engage locally with our community to make an impact.
Thank you, Mike. I think our fourth panelist is Carol Nealon from Dollar Bank. Carol, if you'd be able to provide us with an overview of the work that Dollar's doing, your role, and your community work specifically.
Thanks, Kyle. As many of you know, Dollar Bank is a community bank. It does not have shareholders. It is a mutual association. It has been around for 165 years. It has always been a bank that was a bank for everyone. So 6 years before the Civil War, Dollar Bank would let African Americans, women come in and open accounts with as little as $1. So with that as a backdrop for me coming into this community development space, I questioned why communities of color and low-income communities weren't the recipients of as much philanthropy as other areas of our community were. So that set me on a path to try to find out what the bank could do and what I could personally do to help those communities. And that's what brought me to the state tax credit program and to the Allegheny Conference. Thanks, Kyle.
That's great. Thank you, Carol. We'll stay on you for a minute. You mentioned the state tax credit program, and I know Governor Wolf announced yesterday the opening of the round, specifically for the neighborhood assistance program. And Dollar has been incredibly involved with that program for a number of years, as well as a number of other, credit programs, as you alluded to. Can you tell us some more about Dollar's participation in this program, and maybe how that's led, you through other channels from the bank to kind of spur different investments or partnerships with community organizations and neighborhoods across the region?
Yes, certainly. When I entered the space in 2014, and that's probably after 37 years of my being a commercial lender and an asset manager in private wealth, I began to do some research. And so the first piece that I read was a work that was put on by the Mount Auburn Associates called the Big Rethink. And in it, it basically said philanthropy in Pittsburgh bypassed the communities of color. And so I found that to be abhorrent and wanted to see what we could do as a small community bank to switch that. And so it was a process of sharing access to good information with some of the leaders of these small CDCs that weren't really aware of the mechanics or how to go about getting access to tax credit programs. So we took it upon ourselves at the bank to make outreach to these communities and to basically say, look, we're learning about this, but we knew the first thing that we could do was to offer assistance with, I think the minimum at that time was $100,000 before they could even be considered by the state. So we did that, and I'm so pleased to say that we have had at any time as many as 8 NPP programs going on and at least 2 SPPs going on. So we have really leveraged the amount that the state allows us to allocate to this as much as we can. And I couldn't encourage more corporations out there to really educate themselves on this, because it's a wonderful way to do good in the community.
That's great. Thank you, Carol. As we're thinking about the NEP, obviously you provided some insight from the investor side. Marimba, I know that the Hill CDC's been able to take advantage, of the program to support, some of the work that you all are doing, both from the side to help us understand and the audience understand a little bit better about, how critical it's been for organizational development and program development, but then also, just maybe some of the sort of mundane nuts and bolts for some of our community partners that are on there on how it kind of works, to provide them some insight into that. Again, since the application period's open, to Carol's point, we want to make sure our corporate partners that are participating today take advantage of that and find communities, as a means to start the investment there through the program. But we also want to make sure that those in the community development space that are joining us today have an understanding, and I think hearing from you, how kind of maybe easy or difficult it's been, and lessons you can share would be good, but then what it's really allowed the Hill CDC to do and expand your offerings.
Sure. Thank you. And first, I have to thank Carol Nealon for her stellar stewardship, her commitment to corporate social responsibility has been unparalleled. Carol was our first investor. She reached out and she wanted to be sure that we were clear about the opportunity, coached through the opportunity. Meanwhile, I'm at my office trying to generate, letters to get them out to corporations within the region to make them aware of it. And here we have right here at Dollar Bank, a partner who reached out to us to make sure that we knew. So I just want to make sure that I thank her for, a very unusual approach because it has made all of the difference for us as an organization. So I'll say that, the application, as many kind of state government applications, initially feels really intimidating, because if you've never done, or if you've never developed the muscle of applying to grants, that process sometimes can be a little intimidating. But I do encourage people to, try to secure somebody who is a little more familiar if possible, but they can do it. It's certainly doable. So that's the first thing I want to emphasize. What you would need to do is recruit a corporation who is interested in making an investment into your organization, and for them, they get the benefit of a state tax credit. And so it's really, they do well and you do well. And the Neighborhood Assistance Program has a number of different tax credit buckets. They have the Neighborhood Partnership Program, which is the multi-year commitment to an organization. And normally the corporate partners commit every year, but they normally commit the amount that they're going to commit for all of the years up front, so that you can anticipate what you're going to get the following year. And as a nonprofit executive, and specifically as an entrepreneur turned nonprofit executive, I can tell you that there's nothing like being able to anticipate and know that your support is going to be there. It just allows you to breathe, it allows you to innovate, it allows you to create, it allows you to retain your talent. And so that's a very important component. You also have the Neighborhood Assistance Program, which allows you to, and the Special Partnership Program, which allows you to commit to a specific project. So as opposed to the organization, you're committing to the organization, but you're committing for a specific project. And so this is really the pool of funding that I think is really available to most organizations. There are only so many neighborhood partnership programs, but there can be many, many more neighborhood assistance and special partnership program participants. And so if there's a project, a capital project, or even I think that there's some programming around food programs. If you are doing that kind of work, if you have a gap in your pro forma, if you're doing a development project, anywhere between, I would say, $25,000 up to $150,000, and then even higher for the special partnership program, this can be a fantastic solution for you as a nonprofit. And so I do encourage you to look at the DCED website to explore the opportunity more deeply. It has made all of the difference in the world for us. Again, it has been something that has allowed us to grow into an organization that is able to really move the needle within the Hill District community at a time that is extraordinarily important for our region, at a time where we would probably either be consumed by the market or where we can actually dance with the market and manage the opportunities that come from the market by way of advancing our community's vision. And so we're really grateful for it. We look forward to continuing to be a part of the program and finding new corporate partners.
That's great. Thank you, Marima. Dance with the market. That's a new one for me. We worked together for a number of years and I've never heard you use that one. So I'm gonna add that to the arsenal.
There you go.
Yeah, staying with you for a minute, and I really want to move past tax credits, a little bit here, Marimba, and think about, or have you speak to other ways, that you can really build partnerships, with businesses, be they in your community or larger sort of corporate interests, and what some of those opportunities might look like. Everything from something as small as a volunteer day. So I think back to when we did the Wild Elementary playground build, to large scale opportunities, investing in projects from real estate. So things you're getting ready to break ground at New Granada, and then there's also the opportunity with theater. So if you can walk us through some of those opportunities from the standpoint of a community organization, again, thinking to the corporate folks that we have in the audience today, as well as the community folks, and so that they can get some insight into how those partnerships can form and what they might look like.
Right. Thank you, Kyle. So the reason why I think of it as really taking advantage of opportunities that are oftentimes created by the pressure of the market is because here we have a neighborhood that sits between downtown and the University District, right? And so development is going to happen, and it's going to happen relatively rapidly, but community-based organizations oftentimes don't have the balance sheet or the capital to do the kind of development that they envision for their own community. And so essentially you're just subject to whatever is introduced to your community instead of being a producer of what's happening in your community. With this program, we've been able to secure both philanthropic dollars as well as use the funds here to close gaps on projects. So let's take the New Granada Square Apartments, for example. This is a 40-unit affordable artist development in the heart of the Center Avenue corridor with 5,000 square feet of retail. At the bottom of it. This will be a landmark development attached to the historic New Granada Theater. So one of the things that we have been focused on, we'll be breaking ground in September. So I'm super excited because anybody who knows me knows I've been working on this project for quite some time. But the important thing for us has been to preserve some affordable commercial for Hill District-based businesses, for resident-based businesses, for small businesses. We talk a lot about affordable housing, even though we need quite a bit more in our region, but we do not oftentimes talk about affordable commercial. And it is often the commercial businesses and enterprises that get displaced first, even before residents are displaced. And so we have used this program more recently to plug a gap to bring down the development the commitment from our organization into the project and bring the rent down for the residents. And so that's been a great opportunity for us to support our small business community and at the same time allow a corporate partner to make that commitment and investment. So as a result, they'll have a reduced rent for multiple years because we were able to secure a tax credit investment from a corporate partner. So those are the kinds of things. We also have an affordable housing program where we've pipelined over 250 people who want to buy homes in the Hill District neighborhood. We call it our affordable home ownership program called the Hill District 100. And this is a program where we can develop blocks of dilapidated vacant homes into what we call naturally occurring affordable housing. I know I'm talking your language, Kyle. So without programs like this, those kinds of projects aren't possible. Essentially, communities become, they just become, in some ways, prey to the marketplace because no one is going to invest in that project unless they can make a profit under normal circumstances. And so if somebody is making a profit, that means it's a market rate development. And that means it's probably not affordable to your average Pittsburgher and certainly not affordable to your average Hill District resident. So those are just a couple of examples. We also serve entrepreneurs and they've benefited from the neighborhood partnership program and the stability that we've been able to provide over the years, the partnerships with the universities. So I could go on and on, but I won't. I'll wait for you to ask some other questions of folks and then we can circle back.
Thank you, Marima. The Hill District 100 is the Hill District 250 now. That's good to hear.
It is, yeah.
Renee and Mike, turning to, we heard from Marimba the import, of these relationships from the standpoint of a community organization, and one facing, a number of the pressures that she talked about. Obviously when we think across the region, there's a full spectrum of issues that communities are facing. But, both sort of in light of that and then also from, whether it's specific communities or the community more broadly, or particular, groups within it. I'd like to hear from both of your perspectives, about why having these relationships, these partnerships become important, to Crown Castle, to Google, to the corporate community more broadly. And then, any advice and tips that you would have for the corporate partners that are watching today on how they can begin to develop, such programs, begin to form those relationships and really start giving back, in maybe a larger way than they have, to their communities. So Renee, if we want to start with you, and then we'll ask Mike to weigh in. Thank you.
Sure. So, when we developed our CSR program, and I've been with the company for 13 years, so there was a moment in time when we were very decentralized and local offices did things on their own. But there was a moment in time when we decided, it's time to do something centralized and really do it from a corporate point of view. And we developed ours and we call it Connected by Good. It really brought focus and filter to weigh everything through. I would say there are so many great things that tug at your heartstrings. But you really have to make sure that what you're doing in a community aligns with business goals. And some businesses are just better aligned to do certain volunteer activities and donate funds to certain organizations than others are. And so I think that creating focus helps, because you could be all over the map. You could be given to sports programs, you could be giving to food programs, you could be giving to STEAM programs, but does it really align with your business goals? And so I think you have to bring that to the forefront when you're developing, whether you're small, 50 people, or whether you're a huge corporation like Crown Castle. I think that's really important as a foundation to any type of CSR program. But when it comes to the nuts and bolts, we rely on our local agency, Mulberry, to first vet ideas. There's so much to do in Western PA. And like I said in the intro, we want to be woven into the fabric of the community. So they vet ideas for us, they bring them to us, we vet them internally. And this can take a couple of months because we are looking for a few important things. One, we want to make great impact. That doesn't mean it has to be a huge program. We just want to make great impact. Two, we want to make sure it's to a diverse community. And three, we want to make sure it has long-term effect in impact and diversity. And so we have three pillars, for example, improving public spaces, creating safer communities, and advancing access to education and technology. So those are our three areas of focus. We call them pillars. And so every idea that comes in, we kind of put it up against that framework. And we make sure, does it fit these frameworks? And will it create diversity? Does it have long-term effect? Will it have great impact? And so things like, for example, our partnership with the Fred Rogers Center, where we developed a digital tech kits. They're in Washington and Fayette County, and anybody in the community that has a library card can go in, check out a tech kit. You can be a teacher, you can be a stay-at-home dad, you can be a grandparent. You can go get these tech kits. We think that it affects about 11,000 kids a year who will get these kits. These affect these communities. That has a long-term approach in these counties. So we really believe in affecting and getting to kids early on. We believe in the impact that the Fred Rogers Center has, for example. This is just one example. I can give you many that fit our pillars, but I'd love to hear what Mike has to contribute on the Google side as well. This is our approach in any community across the nation.
Yeah, thank you, Renee. I think something you said really hit the nail on the head, which is focus really helps a lot. I think when I started, I've been at Google about 8 years. When I started, I went to the community affairs meeting and said, well, what do we do? And it was sort of, well, like whatever we think needs to be done. And everybody had their passions, the things that they really wanted to support. We had people passionate about K-12 education and bridging the digital divide and supporting the arts, supporting the environment. And my passion has always been working with entrepreneurs and supporting entrepreneurs. So that was really where I dug in. Over time, though, I think Google as a whole realized, and in the Pittsburgh office, we realized we did need to focus. And that's where we really came up with our pillars being the digital gap, education, specifically computer science education, and opening up opportunities there, and then supporting small businesses and entrepreneurs. And as I said earlier, a lot of what we do through partnerships. And there are a bunch of reasons for this. One is it helps us scale, right? If we want to have that impact where we reach the most people possible, the best way to do that is to work with the organizations who are already reaching the constituents in the communities we want to have an impact on. So we have often partnered with organizations like the Carnegie Library System, which has reach to every single community in Pittsburgh, and resources that we can piggyback on, that we can help enrich and increase the availability of. We've worked with the Center for Women's Entrepreneurship a lot. We launched last summer the Google Digital Coaches Program. So we hired Kashira Moffett to join us, and she's done an amazing job creating events and connecting with a lot of the organizations who support entrepreneurs. I think she's partnered with Innovation Works and the Center for Women's Entrepreneurship, Riverside Center for Innovation, Cocopreneur. co-hosting events. What we found is that Google has a lot of resources sitting on our shelves. There's a lot of products and technology and grant programs and all these other resources, but they don't make an impact if people don't know how to engage with them, how to take advantage of them, how to get the most from them. So the Google Digital Coaches Program was a way to really help educate people and connect the stakeholders in the community with the resources and make that easier for people to benefit from that. I think Kashira's organized 57 events since last year. So it's been an amazing way for us to scale, largely just because she's a powerhouse in terms of connecting with entrepreneurs, and that program specifically works with Black and Latino entrepreneurs. So we've been able to really, I think, connect some dots there that we've been working on for years, but she's been able to advance that. And you know, one program that I'm particularly proud of that I always like to talk about is we had a program to equip entrepreneurs with websites, basically teach them how to build and maintain a website for their business. This came out of us trying to figure out where the biggest gaps were. So we got a group of organizations together and brainstormed where we could have the most impact. And I think it was Bill Generette, who at the time was with Urban Innovation 21, who said, I support all these businesses, and the biggest thing I always tell them is build a website. You don't have a website, you don't have a web presence, so you're not reaching all the people you need to reach to make your business successful. And so with Urban Innovation 21 and Center for Women's Entrepreneurship, the library, Danielle Davis, we gathered this group of partners and created this program where we brought a bunch of entrepreneurs from the community. We did a first cohort in East Liberty and Homewood, and then a second cohort in the Hill District at the library branches in each of those neighborhoods, and basically just taught a class and gave everybody a website and said, let's run with this. The reason I love that one was because it wasn't a grant. I mean, there was funding there for the websites and to support the program, but it was much more getting together a group of people who are passionate about making a difference and pulling together partners and doing what we're all best at. So like with Google, we were able to help with the website part of it, but Urban Innovation 21 and the Center for Women's Entrepreneurship were able to bring the entrepreneurs to the table. So it's, you know, part of our philosophy is know what you're good at. This goes back to what Renee said, know what things your organization's good at, and then partner with the organizations who can help close some of those gaps. And so we have a number of different programs all the time. Some of them are grassroots. Some of them are big Google corporate initiatives, especially through our nonprofit arm, google.org. But I think always the key takeaway here is find the organization doing the work in the community and talk to them and figure out how you can help them advance their plans, advance their programs, and what expertise can you bring to the table to help them do that. That's sort of our sort of approach to the giant problem of community impact.
That's great. Thank you both. We covered a lot of ground. So, you know, as we're going through this, I do want to hone in on a couple things that you both brought up, starting with Renee. You know, you spoke to some of the core initiatives that you all are doing. You know, obviously we're in the midst of the pandemic that's been created by COVID-19. And, you know, I know that Crown Castle did do some work that was a bit of a departure for you all from those normal core programs that you talked about, with food access and a number of other, you know, initiatives. Could you give us a little bit of insight into that, how it came to be? And again, as we're thinking through the way that some of our other corporate partners, you know, may want to be supportive of the community, you know, how they could begin to sort of shape stuff themselves.
Sure. Thanks, Kyle. I think like most companies during the stay-at-home orders, we were trying to make sure our employees were safe and how could we help our neighbors. which was somewhat hard given all the parameters to stay home and stay safe, right? But watching the news, it was apparent all the hardships many people were facing. And we quickly realized we had a resource, albeit out of the norm for us, that we could put to use in the community, and that was our cafe at our South Point campus. We realized we could practice all of the safety protocols necessary and give back. And it fit into our areas of focus for our Connected by Good program. So we provided meals for first responders and the medical community. So for about 10 weeks, we were able to distribute close to 17,000 individual meals in Washington and Allegheny counties, and really to like hyper-local organizations like the Washington County Meals on Wheels. Really just to be able to fill a need in that moment in time. Look, you know, we're an infrastructure company. We put steel in the air, we put fiber in the ground. We don't do food distribution, but we were able to realize, what do we have at home, right? Air quotes. What can we utilize for the community? And funny enough, we put a note on our internal website, and we had our own employees saying, hey, funny enough, like my mom just got a meal at her apartment complex from Meals on Wheels, and it had a Crown Castle sticker on it. Or my son, who is a volunteer firefighter over at Cranberry Township, just got a meal. So it's, you know, it's like that 6 degrees of separation. It was like, it'll make me cry. It was awesome that we were able to do it. Could we do it forever? No, that's not what we do. Could we do it at that moment? Yes, we could. And we're just like, I feel like it's our culture. What can we do right then to help the community? The other great thing that we were able to do very early on in March is we recognized across the country, there was, when all the kids went home. Look, we're a company of 5,000. We have lots of kids to our 5,000 employees. And all of a sudden, everybody was working at home and schooling at home, let's be honest. And so we realized, oh, we can give donations locally and make an impact. And so we made a donation to Computer Reach that allowed that organization, which sits in Pittsburgh and helps Western PA, to give laptops and equipment to over 1,000 families in the greater Pittsburgh region for remote education. I know that they reach so many kids in greater Pittsburgh. I'm a huge fan of Computer Reach, but they have organizations all across the nation, and we were able to do that. And I just think, look, typically in a typical year, we would have given that money to who knows what, right? It would have fit our pillars and we would have moved on. But I appreciate that our leadership and our CSR program allowed us to pivot and do something to help the needs of the community. Again, it's kind of my mantra and our mantra. We want to be woven into the fabric of the community like our infrastructure is, to make these right connections in the moment. And we were able to do that.
Thank you, Carol. I appreciate you sharing that with us. Mike, you mentioned, you know, support that Google, I guess more broadly on a corporate scale, like with Grow with Google and initiatives like that, as well as locally with the digital coaches work that you know, and your team have been doing to really support, you know, the digital, you know, and online presence, you know, as well as the digital literacy, right, of entrepreneurs in the business community to expand their presence. I'm interested to hear from you two things. One, you know, in light of the pandemic and many businesses not being able to operate, you know, in a fully kind of physical bricks and mortar stance, how that work has either found more prominence with your community outreach or, you know, even grown, you know, in the way that you do that and the way folks can then access it. And, just to clarify, you know, on that access point, is this specific to Google employees or is this open to the community?
Sorry, what on what access point?
Just in accessing the programming that you mentioned, you know, I know, you know, some initiatives can be specific to Google employees in the way that you support them in business pursuits. Is this one of those, or is this broadly open to the community? Just to clarify that point for the audience.
Yeah, I mean, generally, the programs, a lot of the programs we build are for the community. So, we work, again, largely through partners, to make sure we're reaching the audiences we most want to have a benefit for. But we tend to, the programs we have tend to be open to the community. And a lot of, like, I've been talking a lot about the local work that we do. I mean, obviously Google's making big investments there was a big, I think it was, I want to get the number right, $800 million response for COVID support. Some of that went to researchers, some of that went to the World Health Organization, right? These were like trying to move the needle on solving the problem and beating the virus and supporting people. But then again, locally, we don't want to lose the momentum we have bridging the digital divide. So like the Beyond the Laptops program that Renee mentioned that Computer Reach did with Neighborhood Allies was like something we jumped on also right away because we saw that it was both core to our mission, but also there was a heightened problem we had to tap into. We also had a similar pivot where we looked at, because of COVID, there were fundamental needs that people in the community had. So entrepreneurs were hurting and small businesses were hurting, but their families were hurting. And so we worked there's an organization called Give Directly, which is, gets money into the hands of people most in need. So we had the Google globally did a partnership with them to get money to seed a bunch of funding. But one of the cities they focused on was Pittsburgh. And so we were able to raise locally almost $300,000 through the community donations as well as employee donations and corporate matching. So that was done very quickly, like within a couple weeks. That got started and Googlers jumped in and donated. And so, yeah, we have a variety of things we're trying to do to stay on top of our core pillars, but also making sure that we're not forgetting that right now sometimes the needs people have are more fundamental than technology gaps and things like that.
That's great. Thank you. Just as a reminder to the audience, if you do have questions for us, please use the Q&A feature, at the bottom of the screen, and we'll get to those, as we're moving through the discussion here. Carol and Marimba, on the topic of the pandemic, obviously it's I'm presuming changed the nature of some of the work, either Marimba that you're doing directly, or Carol, that you're seeing with the number of groups that Dollar is supporting through all of the programs that you mentioned, as well as, maybe placed a larger degree of prominence in certain areas where you've been doing work and need for support and partnership, in those spaces as well. It'd be great to hear from both of you, on those, in the way the pandemic maybe has changed the complexion of the work a little bit, and to provide some of that insight to the audience here today. Marimba, if you want to start, and then we'll go to Karen.
Sure. Well, obviously the pandemic has highlighted a lot of issues around America's disparities along racial lines and also along class lines. The Hill District being a 78% African American community, with a lot of the pre-existing conditions, which we consider to be health conditions, and of course, City Council recently recognized racism as a public health crisis. You have all of these contributing factors coming together that make dealing with the pandemic even more difficult. And so our community has responded collectively on the ground, but there's still a considerable amount of need in terms of capital and philanthropy and support necessary to make sure that the African American community, and I'll speak specifically about the Hill District, does not get pushed further behind, and that these disparities are not, they're already pretty broad and gaping, but that they are not further exacerbated. So this is a time where overinvestment has to happen if we want to be in any reasonable position at the end of this pandemic to really recover. And so I do, ask our corporate partners to think of it. There's a lot of focus right now on racial equity and diversity and inclusion, and that work has to be centered in humanity, and it also has to be centered in economic justice. Because if we are not focused on those things, then full recovery really is not going to be possible. I think that this is an important time to focus on upskilling, to focus on making sure that people have their basic needs met, making sure that our children continue to receive the level of education, and if they weren't before, that they do now more than ever, that is necessary to not just keep them from losing progress, but in fact to accelerate their progress so that they are in a better position after this versus a worse position. But that is going to take an all hands on deck approach. That is going to take our corporate community coming together and saying, we're serious about this racial equity work. We are going to dig in. We are going to support Black-led organizations. We are going to support Black communities, which, by the way, is just strategic for our region, because they are ideally located. And I am one who happens to believe that, the cure for cancer is sitting in a jail cell somewhere, right? I really believe that we have over-incarcerated, we have poorly educated, we have under-supported so much of our population that we have now hindered our own progress collectively as Americans and as world citizens. And so I believe that we have to do things differently if we want people to reach their full potential. And that includes all of us, not just the people who are most disadvantaged. And so, again, the work that our corporate community can do in this moment cannot be overstated. It can happen through partnerships. It can happen through procurement and hiring. It can happen through this program, and I also want to say that this program, specifically the tax credit program, is not just for large conglomerates or large corporations. This is also for any, business that has a state tax liability. And I think that's just about everyone. So if you have sufficient state tax liability and you want to invest into your community, this may be a program to explore. Obviously, the more you have, the greater opportunity you have to give. But, I want to include our SMEs to think about this program also. But it is our corporate community that has the most capital to really shift the trajectory of our region, which we know is not in a good place for Black residents and other minority residents. And so I think there's particular attention, and we have to kind of break down the barriers and have deeper dive discussions, walk through our fears, walk through our anxieties about having these conversations, and figure out how to tackle this issue as a region if we are going to, as Pittsburgh, survive this in the long haul.
Thank you, Irma. Carol, along those lines, obviously the initial question I threw out on maybe some of the impacts you're seeing, of the current, pandemic, as well as the let's say awakening around, racial, social justice issues. But we did have a question come in from the audience that I want to make sure we get to as well. Given the breadth of organizations where dollars involved and the approach that you touched on to the work earlier, what advice can you really share with community organizations that are doing great work, but maybe having challenges accessing funding if they don't sort of fit neatly within some of the pillars of potential funders and ways that they may be able to approach that?
Well, once again, I would just ask our corporate partners to really think about what this tax credit means. I can remember for years hearing about tax credits, and I would be like, yeah, whatever. But then I actually thought about it. And what that means is these organizations that are underfunded get real cash dollars. And what you as an organization get is a tax credit of up to 90% of that money that you give, you get back. So, that does align with a lot of corporate goals to, have return on investment for their shareholders. So please, I just would really recommend that corporations that are listening, those that are on the panel, please think about it. Each corporation can do $1,250,000 per year in these tax credits, and that's $1,250,000 that Crown Castle and Google, that's what, $2,500,000 that you could help put into the community just by digging deep into the tax credit program.
And can I tell you how far that can go in the Hill District? So what that means in the Hill District is that you have created affordable housing, affordable commercial space for small businesses from within that neighborhood for at least 10 years. That's what that kind of investment can do. And upwards to 15 years. That capital can go directly into the development pro forma and offset essentially our payment to the bank every month, such that we're bringing down our total development costs, and therefore rent is more affordable. So by that point, businesses have been able to get rooted in the community in a different way, and to actually flourish without having their rents spike with the market pressures that we know are surrounding neighborhoods like the Hill District. So there are real impacts. I mean, that is, it costs us anywhere from $50,000 to I'd say $85,000 to create an affordable housing unit. So that is many housing units that can be produced with that kind of investment. And so they may not always seem like big numbers for our corporate partners, because you're kind of used to looking at big numbers. But for a small nonprofit and a CDC in particular who's focused on this kind of work, that can make all of the difference towards our mission and ultimately towards our region.
Thank you both. We're coming up sort of against time here, but we had another question come in from the audience asking around, as the corporate partners see the sort of labor force and potential investments in ensuring that, our residents are able to become the labor force that you all need and want, of maybe initiatives that you see in that space, investments that you've been able to make, and, other partnerships, whether it's through, certificate programs, Mike, is I think of things that Google has done, or other opportunities that you all, see there. And we'll do this as our last question and then move to wrap up.
Yeah. Yes. Sorry, that was specifically asking about what types of programs are available.
Yeah, either ones that you have available or opportunities that you see, to form partnership, in the talent space. We've spent a lot of time talking about some volunteer initiatives, entrepreneurial support, investments in real estate and organizational capacity. I think when we think about some of the opportunities, immediately in the workforce and the labor space,
right,
work that you all have been doing there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is another one of the priorities of Google to invest in workforce development. I think one of the biggest grants we made a couple years ago was to Goodwill, which is nationally, which is the largest workforce development organization in the country. Locally, we do things like resume writing workshops. We've worked with veterans and other groups to improve, to coach them on resumes and jobs, applying for jobs. Another thing that we try to do, again, going back to closing the divide a little bit, is exposing more students, especially Black students, to computer science. We have something like 700 students come through our offices every year, and meet with engineers and hear about what we do. And just get exposed to the world of computer science. We had an after-school program for high school students who were coming out of boot camps, coding boot camps, to give them an opportunity to practice their skills with Google engineers sitting alongside of them. So take what they learned in a program like All-Star Code or Academy Pittsburgh and have them apply it to real problems. So we're always looking for ways to close that gap. And get, again, enrich the opportunities around computer science, but also just in terms of helping people. We have a digital skills program. Again, we've worked with the Homewood Children's Village and other organizations to expose them to this digital skills program, which is really just getting comfortable with the technology, building a spreadsheet, creating a presentation, like solving everyday problems that you'll need in a job using technology. So there's a lot of things like that we're trying to do to also close that gap. And then obviously there's a huge recruiting push. We've done a lot of things to try to find and eliminate biases in our recruiting and hiring processes. We do a lot of things like, we don't, in interview feedback, we try to keep it anonymous. So we're not, we know that if you know the person's name or gender, you may be biased in ways you don't even realize. So we try not to capture that in our interview feedback and really just focus on the person's work and how they do in the interview. So there've been a lot of things we're trying to do to address especially in the tech community, the underrepresentation of Black and Latino people is worse, I think, than the average for other industries, which also have challenges. So yeah, this is a big focus for Google, and again, locally in Pittsburgh, we're trying to grow the computer science industry and get more people into it and make it more accessible.
Hey, Kyle, I would just add on the infrastructure side, we know that for small cells, we'll need 800,000 small cells in the coming years to support 5G. And we know that with the industry, we'll make an investment of over $275 billion. And what that means is we need people who are specialized laborers to go out and build the infrastructure. And we have workforce development programs across the nation, specifically over in LA and Chicago, where we partner with unions. And so even though these aren't college degreed types programs, they're workforce development. And so we know specifically that there's going to be a great need of upwards of 50,000 types of union jobs that will be needed to build the infrastructure for all of us to be powered on the Internet of Everything. So we too are working on workforce development type programs.
That's great. Thank you both. I wish we had more time, but we're at it today. So to be respectful of everyone's calendar, we will wrap here. I want to, thank everyone who was able to join us today from the Allegheny Conference Regional Investors, as well as, other folks who made the time to participate in today's webinar. We hope you got some ideas on how your company and your organization can be more involved and supported in local work in your communities. If you'd like any more details on community programs or the tax credit investment opportunities, please contact my colleague, our Director of Community Development, Becky Thatcher Bear. And another thank you, a big thank you to all of our presenters and our panelists today, Marima Malayans, Renee Morales, Mike Kapsambellis, and Carol Nealon. I'd be remiss if we didn't thank our sponsors one more time, Peoples, Giant Eagle, Highmark, and UPMC Health Plan for their support, which allows us to offer this critical programming. Please remember that the Allegheny Conference has launched a COVID-19 response website, including our Ready Pittsburgh Reopening Toolbox, which we hope serves as a resource for you and the region as we continue with a safe and sustained recovery. You can find the link at the top of our homepage, AlleghenyConference.org. Please be on the lookout for invitations to join upcoming installments of the Allegheny Conference Response and Recovery webinar series. Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your day and be well.